Students, let us begin with the next chapter, Indigo, from your Flamingo textbook. Now, Indigo chapter is written by Louis Fisher. Now, who was Louis Fisher? Let me throw some light into the life of this author, Louis Fisher. Louis Fisher was born in Philadelphia in the year 1896. He served as a volunteer in the British Army between 1918 and 1920. He made a career as a journalist and wrote for the New York Times, the Saturday Review, and for European and Asian publications. He was also a member of the faculty at Princeton University. The following is an extract from his book, The Life of Mahatma Gandhi. The book has been reviewed as one of the best books ever written on Gandhi by Times Educational Supplement. Dear students, you really need to understand Mohandas Karamchand Gandhi, the father of our nation, fondly called as Mahatma, as Bapu, ensured the freedom of our country through his non-violent methods. He believed in satyagraha, in the movements, in conducting the movements in a very peaceful manner in order to show your resentment. He never used any arm or ammunition in order to get the freedom of our country. Without any weapon, dear students, this man achieved us the freedom of our country. And it was his theology, his methods that really attracted so many people across the globe. One of them was Louis Fisher. Now, dear students, in this particular chapter, what you need to understand are the name of the characters, the name of the places, and the year in which all these particular events had taken place. I'll just throw a brief insight into the gist of the chapter. This extract highlights the injustice of the landlord system in Bihar. The Champaran peasants or the sharecroppers were exploited by the rich and influential English landlords who insisted on cultivation of indigo on 50% part of their land and made them surrender the entire indigo harvest as rent. After Germany developed synthetic indigo, they obtained agreement from the sharecroppers to pay them the compensation for being released from the 15% arrangement. Gandhi took up the cause of these poor sharecroppers, secured justice for them through convincing arguments and negotiations. He wanted to remove the fear from the hearts of the sharecroppers against the British landlords. He wanted justice for these sharecroppers, but justice they would demand from their own point. He was merely there in order to motivate these particular peasants to fight for themselves. He taught them a lesson of self-reliance. He not only came there to work for for getting justice for these sharecroppers, but he also wanted to remove the cultural and the social backwardness of the people of Champaran. Not only that, he saw to it about the health condition of these particular sharecroppers, the people living in Champaran. He, along with so many volunteers across India, which included his son and his wife, came over to Champaran to help these needy people of Champaran. Thus, it was his unflinching effort that really made this particular movement to be successful. As a result, it were the sharecroppers who received justice from the hands of the inquiry commission that was set in to look into this matter. Now, in today's video, we are just going to see the highlights, the main highlights of this particular chapter, which you really need to remember. The very first paragraph starts with the author, Louis Fisher, meeting Gandhi in the year 1942 at his ashram in Sevagram. Gandhi told him that it was in the year way back in 1917 that he developed the urge to depart the Britishers from the Indian soil. Then, after that, it was Gandhi who had proceeded to tell about how eventually he found that yes, the people of Champaran really needed him. And all the due credit went to this particular sharecropper by the name of Rajkumar Shukla. Mahatma Gandhi went to attend the annual meeting of the Indian National Congress at Lucknow. A small farmer named Rajkumar Shukla came to him. He requested Gandhi to visit Champaran. Dear students, you need to understand the quality of Rajkumar Shukla. He was a resolute. Resolute means he was a determined person. He was told by somebody that if the people of Champaran can gain justice, it was only through the efforts of Gandhi. That is why you could find Rajkumar Shukla in every meeting that Gandhi conducted. And eventually, he went up to his ashram. Mahatma Gandhi went to attend the annual meeting of the Indian National Congress at Lucknow. A small farmer named Rajkumar Shukla came to him and requested him to visit Champaran. Gandhi told Shukla he had an appointment in Kanpur and was also committed to go to the other parts of India. But that did not deter the determination of Shukla. Rather, he accompanied Gandhi wherever he went. Why? Because he had made up his mind that he would have a talk with Mahatma Gandhi and he would ensure that he really fights for the cause of these sharecroppers of Champaran. Finally, Gandhi met him in his ashram, and there Rajkumar Shukla addressed Gandhi and told him to fix a date. It was Gandhi who really was attracted by the determination of Shukla, as a result of which he told Shukla to come up to Calcutta, where he would be having a meeting, and from Calcutta they would go to Champaran. Under an ancient arrangement, the Champaran peasants were sharecroppers. Rajkumar Shukla was one of them. He had come to the Congress session to complain about the injustice of the landlord system. He apprised Gandhi of what all problems were faced by the sharecroppers in the hands of the British landlords, that they were forced to grow indigo. Gandhi was impressed with the determination of the peasant. He said that he would be visiting Calcutta after a few months and that Shukla should meet him there. Just the way that I told you, dear students, when Gandhi got free, they both took a train and went to Patna. So, dear students, draw a flowchart. You should know the halls of Gandhi before he had reached the place known as Champaran. So, from Calcutta, they boarded a train and they went to Patna. And there in Patna, they went to the house of the lawyer by the name of Rajendra Prasad. Did that ring any bells? Yes, definitely. Rajendra Prasad, who later on became the first president of independent India. The servants of his household recognized Rajkumar Shukla. There would be a probability that Shukla would have been on and off in the house of Rajkumar Shukla in order to have a talk to him regarding justice to be given to the sharecroppers of Champaran. He was made to sit outside, and so was Gandhi. The servants did not recognize Gandhi. Gandhi was not allowed to draw water from the well. Dear students, you ought to know that our Indian society was divided into upper caste and lower caste, and Rajendra Prasad belonged to the upper caste, and these Rajkumar Shukla and Gandhi was considered to be the persons from the category of lower caste. So that is why they thought that the well would get polluted, the water would get polluted if Gandhi went there and he drew the water from the well. Gandhi was impressed by the determination of Rajkumar Shukla, and then after Patna, then before going over to Champaran, he went over to Muzaffarpur. Gandhiji decided to go to Muzaffarpur, which was on the way to Champaran, to gather more information. Though Shukla had apprised him of the condition of the sharecroppers, but Gandhi himself, being a lawyer, had the backup plans. He did not want to go and confront the British authorities until and unless he had the valid proof, the valid documents, the valid data in his hand. He sent a telegram to Professor J.P. Kriplani. Gandhi took a train to Muzaffarpur that had arrived midnight on 15th April 1917. He was already there waiting with his students. According to Gandhi, it was a remarkable thing that a government professor by the name of Malkani was entertaining him. Why? To harbor a man like him. What's the meaning of it? Dear students, you need to understand. All the people who were working for the government, they were forbidden to have any connection with these so-called advocates of the home rule. Now, who were the advocates of the home rule? These freedom fighters. And he really said kudos to this person Malkani, who really did not even worry what the government is going to do with him and entertained him in his house. The news spread like fire, and the people across Muzaffarpur and the sharecroppers from Champaran came to visit him. Gandhi's arrival and the purpose of his mission spread through Muzaffarpur and Champaran very fast. Sharecroppers started to visit him. Muzaffarpur lawyers informed Gandhi about the whole situation. They explained to him about their cases and the fee that they charge from these people in order to take their case to the court. It was Gandhiji who started scolding the lawyers that if you, being an Indian, their brother, would not help these particular Indians, their brothers in distress, how could they expect a soft corner from the Britishers? Moreover, Gandhi was told that most of the cultivable land in the Champaran district was owned by the Englishmen, who had divided them into various estates. The peasants, who were the occupants of these lands, forced them to cultivate indigo. Now, what is indigo? Indigo is a blue color plant that grows, the blue color crop from which we get the blue dye. They forced the sharecroppers to cultivate indigo on 15% of their land and to give the entire profit of their harvest as rent to these British landlords. All this was done through a long-term agreement. Dear students, you need to understand that there were two important agreements done by the sharecroppers. One was this agreement where they were supposed to give 15% of their profit of the harvest to the English landlords. Then there came the second agreement. Let us see what was the second agreement. By this time, Germany had developed the synthetic indigo. And with the development of the synthetic indigo, now the plantation of indigo was no longer a profitable business. So now the Englishmen wanted to do something. They did not want to get rid of the money that the peasants were giving them. So they played a very clever trick on them by telling them that now they were free to grow indigo according to their wish. If they wanted, they can grow. If they did not want, they would not at all grow. But in return of this particular freedom, they were supposed to give some compensation to the Britishers. Poor sharecroppers, they were illiterate. They could not see through the cunningness of these English landlords. Some of the sharecroppers already gave the money as compensation. but there were several other peasants who did not give the money. And when they heard the news of the synthetic indigo, then they started hiring the lawyers who would take up their case in the court. When Gandhi arrived at Champaran, he decided to gather the facts. For this, he visited the secretary of the British Landlords Association. You should know the two important people whom he met after arriving at Champaran. First was the British landlord, the secretary of the British Landlord Association. And this person told Gandhi that since he was not at all an inhabitant, a citizen of that particular area, he was not at all allowed to say anything, and the secretary could not give any news to him. Then, after that, he visited the municipal commissioner of Tirhut division, who started bullying him and threatened him to leave Champaran. Gandhi did not consent. This marked the start of the civil disobedience movement. Dear students, you need to understand, Gandhi was a man of principles. He never broke the law, but now he was divided between the conflict of duties. Conflict of duties that on one hand he had the law to take care of, on the other hand, he had the peasants who demanded his attention. Now the law was held a lower position, and it was his inner conscience that made him take the sides of the peasant, took the foremost position. And thereafter, he sent a reply to the notice that he would not leave Champaran. Because of this, he was summoned by the court to appear there, and as a result of which, when the people got to know that their Messiah, their Savior, had to face a trial, they all went and surrounded the courthouse. It was a peaceful agitation held by these particular sharecroppers and the people. This marked the beginning of the movement. Why? Because the motive of Gandhi was achieved. He did not want to just go to the court of law with the fear in the hearts of these particular sharecroppers. But first he wanted to remove the fear of the Britishers from the heart of these sharecroppers. Eventually, the British officials themselves grew very restless. They were not able to control the crowd, and as a result of which, they asked Gandhi to regulate them. It was through this particular demonstration that Gandhi wanted to tell the Britishers not to take them for granted, because they, by their peaceful agitation, can overturn the entire situation. He was giving them concrete proof that their strength, hitherto dreaded and unquestioned, feared and could not be given a question, could be challenged by the Indians. That is, now no more injustice is going to be tolerated by the people of India. Now, after that, at this point of time, the trial had to begin. But then again, the British judge did not want to start the trial. He demanded that he would postpone the trial, to which Gandhi did not agree. He said that he wanted to consult his higher authorities. Gandhi read a statement in front of the court in which he accepted his fault in a very humble manner. But seeing the far-stretched or the multitude of people that had surrounded the courthouse, the lawyer ultimately had to give in, have to be submissive, and as a result of which he told Gandhi to furnish a bail, which was again refused by Gandhi, and without any bail he was let free, giving him the permission that he was free to go anywhere. He grew really very, very happy. Why? Because finally it was the civil disobedience movement that had really triumphed in India for the very first time. He came out of the court, and then he was surrounded by these particular lawyers. But then he questioned the lawyer that the British authorities would not keep quiet, and they can anytime put him to jail. Then what would they do? The lawyers told him, or rather replied, that we have come here to Champaran to help you out. But if you would not be there, we'll go back to our places. And then he started to shake the conscience of these lawyers by telling, then who would raise the issue of these or help these poor farmers or poor peasants or the sharecroppers? Then the lawyers realized that Gandhi, being a stranger to this land, came all the way to Champaran to help, to fight for the justice of these sharecroppers. But they belonged to that particular area, they belonged to that land. So they consented. And finally, Gandhi said that the battle of Champaran has been won. On hearing this, Gandhi said that their struggle for Champaran's peasants had been won. He divided the group into pairs of two and made a sequence in which they had to voluntarily surrender in the court. Now, what is the meaning of it? That they started off with the jail bharo andolan. That means they themselves had surrendered to the police, to the authorities, and they themselves wanted to go to the jail in order to protest against the injustice by the British officials. After some days, the magistrate sent a letter to Gandhi in which it was written that the case against him had been taken back. Gandhi and the other lawyers carried on the in-depth investigation into the injustice with the farmers. Statements were recorded. Dear students, you very well know. Now, in this chapter, you will come across several legal terms, and you very well know that when a case is taken to the law, be it a prosecutor or a defense, now that particular lawyer really has to collect the amount of evidences and the proofs in order to prove their point. And then in June, Gandhi was called by the Lieutenant Governor Gate, Sir Edward Gate, and before meeting him, that he always to remember, Gandhi always used to have a backup plan consisting of these particular lawyers that he very well knew, and he was very perfect in it. Why? Because he himself was a lawyer, and he made plans for civil disobedience in case if the Lieutenant Governor did not yield in to his request. Gandhi had 4 interviews, and after the 4th interview, finally he was successful. It was the Lieutenant Governor who had set up a commission of inquiry in which there were the representatives of the British government along with the one representative of these particular peasants, that was Mahatma Gandhi. Gandhi remained in Champaran for 7 months. He also made several short visits later. The official inquiry did not favor the planters, hence they agreed to pay back the peasants. Gandhi was really very happy because he was not happy that the money had been reimbursed, but actually he was really very happy that the Britishers really tasted defeat by their own Britishers, and that really meant that they had to lower their prestige and they had to give 25% of the money that they had taken from these particular sharecroppers of Champaran. He was the one who had initiated the proceeding. Why? Because first of all, Gandhi was adamant that he would take 50%. But since they were not coming to an agreement, Gandhi came to a conclusion. It was the planters who had offered 25% and Gandhi had agreed to it. After that, the British planters left their property within the next few years, and then these properties were returned to the sharecroppers, and thus after that, indigo sharecropping soon came to an end. Gandhi not only wanted to work for the injustice done by the British landlords against these sharecroppers, but he looked at the appalling condition of the people of Champaran, their cultural and social backwardness, their health issues, and the condition of the females at the place of Champaran. He looked into all these particular things. His followers from across India, which included his son Devdas and his wife Kasturba Bai, they all came down to Champaran to help him in his cause. During his long stay in Champaran, not only he helped the people of Champaran, but at the same time he maintained all the accounts of his ashram. The Champaran incident was a turning point in the life of Mahatma Gandhi. Look at this man. Without any arm, without any ammunition, with only the two pair of clothing on his body, this man fought for us and won the freedom for our country, adopting the method of non-violence. He believed in the theology that if somebody hits you on one cheek, you give him your other cheek also, implying that you can transform a person by your kindness, by your forgiveness, by your benevolence. The Champaran Satyagraha was not an act of disobedience. It was an attempt to help out the poor peasants. This was Gandhi's way to solve the issues. He was concerned for the people. The basic idea was to serve humanity and make a free India who could stand for its rights. Then again we see to it that no matter, you are going to see that there were several followers of Gandhi, be it the Britishers or the European or the Indian one. Now there was a man named as Charles Frere Andrews, and he was a pacifist. Pacifist means he also wanted to tread on the path of Mahatma Gandhi. He used to go to various places in order to propagate the theology of non-violence. The lawyers told Gandhi, or rather suggested Gandhi, that why didn't he allow Charles Andrew to stay there in Champaran and to help improve the condition. At that point of time, it was Gandhi who pointed out that they had to learn the lesson of self-reliance, that is self-dependency, self-independence, not to depend upon other person. So finally, it was not only the justice for the sharecroppers, it was the independence or the fight for the freedom of our country along with the self-reliance that went hand in hand during this particular Champaran episode. I hope, my dear students, the gist of this particular chapter is absolutely clear, and I have covered almost the main points of this particular chapter. Thank you. Bye-bye. Take care.